Progressive centrist? What the f do you mean? Wait, maybe this guy's a f***ing idiot. Like, maybe this guy's just like a total... Maybe this guy's like dumb as hell. The only thing Hutch proved here is that he reads below a high school level. And then just moves on. Just moves on like he didn't just totally loop and get like an idiot. Nice one, Hutch.
Can you read that sentence again?
I can read it right now.
So there's a long-running drama, but I thought it was dead, to be honest. I thought it was dead. Over a political organization, a streamer political group called Chorus, that was set up primarily by this guy called Brian Tyler Cohen, who's a big liberal content creator on YouTube. And basically after the election loss, he came out with this pitch, and his pitch was basically something exactly like this. He said something to the effect of, do you ever just feel like all the Republicans have gone into a Monday morning meeting and come out with the perfect talking points, and they're all pushing the party line and they're all defending Trump? Imagine if we could do that, but for the Dems. That was basically what he said, almost verbatim. I'm lifting that from Jay Stalk a little bit, but I also remember him saying it very clearly. And Taylor Lorenz basically did an article. Taylor Lorenz is a journalist, many of you may know. Quite hated. She has had some issues in the reporting here and there before, but the broad factual claims of this article were pretty much unimpeachable. And basically what happened was she got her hands on some contracts for this organization Chorus that they were having streamers sign. And her, along with the Wired editorial staff, legal team, whatever, reviewed these contracts and detailed sort of what was in them and some of the interactions that people had had with Chorus in the process of signing them or not signing them in some cases. And basically these contracts mandated that any bookings creators wanted to do with political figures had to go through this thing called the Chorus newsroom. So it was basically all channeled through Chorus, all funneled through Chorus, all their contacts and everything were funneled through Chorus. And they weren't allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus, the fact they were getting paid, or their relationship or Chorus's relationship with this dark money fund for liberal projects, Democrat projects, called the 1630 Fund. Dark money, for those who don't know, it's political, typically election-related finance that you don't know the source of. It isn't fully declared. You don't know, you can't track the source of. And they typically go through a few different types of specific funding structures in order to obscure that information, is basically the gist of it. Obviously, you can read way more into it. You can go, look it up on your own time. You don't really need to know all the details to understand what's going on there. Now, this all happened a while ago. This all happened like 6+ months ago. This is like old drama. And Destiny lost 2 debates, if you can believe it, to Taylor Lorenz herself over this. And he just started spurging out and started acting like dark money was any money that you don't know 100% the source of, even if it's going through like limited companies for like non-political related projects. That's still dark money, apparently, which is like a stupid definition that nobody uses for dark money. He just wanted to blow it up into a completely vacuous term so that he could label this certain type of funding that Taylor was getting. She gets funding from, it's a journalism grant that a bunch of journalists get from this thing called the Omidyar Group that's run by some billionaire, basically. He claims that it's private money. Obviously, you can't 100% know that because it goes through a limited company or whatever. And basically, he says, yeah, it's a personal project. I'm doing it to fund it because I believe in the cause, funding the press. And that's the idea. And so Destiny labels that dark money too, to try and draw an equivalence with campaign, election, spending, which is obviously political in nature, partisan political in nature, which is a different thing, which is what dark money is specifically referring to in any definition of dark money you look at. So that all happened quite a while ago, guys. Now, Taylor Lorenz, for some time now, has been booked to appear on Pisco, Hutch, IRI, and the Soy Pills podcast, Live and Learn. That's been delayed a few times, and then she finally appeared yesterday, or the day before, giving Hutch his opportunity to confront Taylor Lorenz, because he had disagreements with her article. He had some disagreements with her article, and he wanted to defend, moderate Dems, Brian Tyler Cohen, the idea of them using dark money. He wanted to defend all of this. So he wanted to confront Taylor Lorenz. If you know anything about Hutch's previous confrontations, he does get in his feelings quite a bit. Especially if he gets the sense that his friends, the Pisco especially, aren't backing him up, or are sort of taking the wind out of his sails, or, basically if anyone says, even if they agree with his conclusion and they're on the same team and everything, if someone says, Hutch, I don't think that's a good argument. He's going to get really upset. And that happened in the Taylor Lorenz appearance. Pisco, you could see, was sitting there biting his tongue for extended periods of time as they looped on certain points, which we're going to go over in a minute. And eventually he does start saying stuff to Hutch. He does start saying, Hutch, listen, you got to just... And Hutch starts getting very, in his feelings, very defensive about it, which we're going to take a look at. And it's spiraled, guys. It's just totally spiraled. And he's now been on Pisco's for hours today, having the same thing happen, hashing it out again and again. And it's getting to the point, I think, honestly, Pisco is going to struggle if he doesn't just start calling out what's happening. And it's difficult because he's friends with like a total bitch who literally cannot hear anything negative said about himself ever without descending into just like a total crybaby fit. But it is apparent that Hutch is terrible at arguing, incredibly biased, and he gets hyped up like fucking crazy when Destiny and DGG give him a little bit of an ego boost. If they come down and side with Hutch, he gets such an ego boost, and he is consciously, deliberately using it against Pisco in their conversations. He is consciously, deliberately basically trying to set it up so Pisco gets attacked by DGG, apparent as fuck, and Pisco sits there treading on fucking eggshells, desperately trying to not say anything that could even remotely be interpreted as snarking him or as siding with the commies, siding with Taylor, not backing him up. He's like desperately walking on eggshells, trying not to upset this guy. And he just needs to start calling out what's happening when it's happening, because it's impossible. It's impossible to watch, man. And you can see he is getting so frustrated with it while it's happening. So let's take a look first at Live and Learn. So this is where the first big disagreement starts, and they loop on this disagreement for a long time, okay? Let's take a look.
Well, my sense of this particular reporting is that I think you do have a slant. And I think you do. I think your opinion is
my slant is probably, I mean, as you can read from all my Wired reporting, it's against dark money, and it is a transparency.
Well, no,
slant.
That's not the slant that I'm talking about. I think you have an anti-establishment slant. I think you've discussed
the chorus is anti-establishment.
Well, hang on, real quick. You've described yourself as on the left, or I think you even hinted that you were identified with the label of leftist. I think in your conversation
in certain on
and
certain
when you
issues,
read the article, it's like really clear that you have villains in the story and you have heroes in the story and you have kind of a larger narrative that I think goes beyond disclosure,
but like 15
right?
people were right, but like my name is on the top, but as you know, with an
So I will agree with Hutch in this, that there's villains in the story, in the sense that there is a party that is seen as engaging in wrongdoing. That's true. Yeah, she's portraying Chorus, the 1630 Fund, etc., as engaging in wrongdoing. Brian Taylor Cohen is engaging in wrongdoing. She's not saying they're evil. She's not saying they are villains, but the story kind of has a villain. It says, they are mandating that people don't disclose their relationship. That's bad. That's wrong. Do you have a problem with that, Hutch? Is that a problem?
An investigation like this, especially one that went to the top, that like 15 people worked on this story. So
well, I understand that, but like, for example, so you assigned the label centrist to Olivia Juliana,
which is how she self-identified.
No, she self-identifies as a progressive, right?
No, from what I found from my original reporting back from the New York Times, back when I had interviewed her years ago, she was identifying as a centrist Democrat back in Texas. That was her whole thing. In
2024?
Maybe it was whenever I spoke to her, which was quite a while ago. But just to be clear, she never took issue with that. She never reached out for a correction on that at all. We would have been happy to, like, if she had.
I mean, nonetheless, that is an opinion, right? Subjective. It's a very subjective label.
No, it was how she. Well, first of all, I think we can correctly identify people's political sort of affiliations. For instance, if she's, correct me if I'm wrong on Olivia Juliana, and Olivia Juliana works for Chorus, but.
So this is the big disagreement for a huge part of the panel, guys. Is this Olivia Juliana woman a centrist? Okay? I don't want to watch the whole thing here because it is boring as fuck. But basically, Taylor Lorenz says, I spoke to her a few years ago. She told me she was a centrist. That's what I'm going on to call her a centrist. Hutch says, no, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. That seems like a fine reason to me. That seems like a fine reason to me.
Her whole thing was that she was a Democrat in Texas, right? Who had done a lot of work with like reproductive justice.
Yeah, right. So she focuses on abortion, LGBTQ plus,
Right,
climate,
right.
voting rights. When I look at
Yeah.
these sort of policy priorities, that does not strike me as a when I think of a centrist, I think of Joe Manchin. I think
Okay.
of like Jared
again,
Polis
if
in Nebraska,
Olivia,
right?
if
The centrist label is very vague and broad. It's incredibly vague and broad. Someone can be a centrist and believe in abortion, climate change, gay marriage. Someone can be a centrist and believe in all those things very easily, very easily. One example is a lot of people may consider themselves economically conservative, but sort of like socially liberal. In that case, someone would be progressive, because progressive, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, relates to social issues, but they're more conservative fiscally, so they see it, the way they see it is they're sort of in the middle. They have agreements on both sides. So they'll label themselves a centrist. So you'd have a progressive centrist. It's just not, it's not that strict of a term that it's worth arguing over, the matter of fact here as to whether it can apply.
Olivia wants to reach out, and we honestly, the thing that you're bringing up mostly comes
Well,
up.
the thing is, Q, that he thinks, so what Hutch is trying to prove that Taylor was attempting to use the article as essentially propaganda, as pro-lefty, anti-moderate propaganda, because everything's about Hassan, and he needs to maintain his space in the politics streamer ecosystem, okay? So he's trying to prove that Taylor is doing this as propaganda, pro-lefty, against moderate Dems. And so he's saying, well, you use centrist, even though it doesn't fit, because that serves your purposes of villainizing the centrists. That serves your purpose. But she's actually a progressive. Now, even if he did prove that centrist didn't fit, which is going to be hard because it's a very vague term that can be used differently in different contexts, it would barely go like 1 or 2% of the way towards proving his point. It's like not very significant at all. So does it say something? Yeah, it says something if she was misusing that. But it really barely contributes. It's like a worthless point to get hung up on for like 40 minutes of the podcast.
On the right, because for instance, when I've covered Nick Fuentes, he will say, well, I'm not a white nationalist, or Chuck Johnson, who I cover all the time, or not so much anymore, actually, he's less relevant, but he would constantly say, well, I'm not a Holocaust denier, right? And so I think at some point you do have to take a look at certain people's, beliefs and what they've expressed and try to categorize.
How would you define centrist? How would you define centrist?
A Democrat? A Democrat that's probably middle of the road, like a middle of the road Democrat, like a Democrat that could operate in a red state probably, and a blue state maybe equal, like somebody that's sort of appeals
broad
to both.
though. That's a very, very broad.
Well, it's kind of like the centrism itself. Like as I think about it and sit here, there's a kind of identified more Schumer-oriented Democrat, more moderate Democrat associated with a centrist label.
Well,
and it is kind of vague, right? It's a kind of vague
but
term.
Also, like, I wouldn't say that the chorus, chorus has made content with Schumer. Like, I guess I would say it's a very vague term. It's probably the most broad term, because I don't think we want to get it, again, like, too specific.
The important thing here, Taylor, is to Hutch's point, based on, and I found this when I read your article too, you use centrist as like a pejorative, right?
No, for this one we say that, like, when
in general you do. You don't like the Democrats, and you especially don't like centrist Democrats. This is just like your ideological.
On certain issues. I think it depends on the type of.
Do you use centrist as a pejorative?
In general, you use centrist as a pejorative, right? Like you view these people as like these feckless do-nothings, and like I
think you're completely putting words in my mouth that I have not said. I think I don't like Chuck Schumer, and there's a lot of what he says, but there's a lot of people that are quote unquote centrist that I absolutely respect and work with, and that worked on this article. Like, there's people just to be clear, this article went through so many editors that have such a range of political beliefs. And I hear you that maybe you disagree that Olivia Juliana is classified as we described her, a centrist Gen Z influencer who spoke at the 2024 DNC.
I think when you look at her,
issue with that, and
that's beside the point. I mean, whether or not she disputed it, I think if most people, well, hang on, just let me real quick. I'm not trying to cut you off very much. So just let me say.
Okay, sorry.
I think if like a reasonable person went to Olivia Juliana's feed and they saw her policy priorities. I think that they would colloquially understand her to be just sort of like a standard Gen Z progressive Democrat who's focused on progressive
is also the reason progressive has come up.
So yeah, progressive can mean different things in different contexts as well. There are progressives, like people might say, people use it as like a qualifier of a group of Dems, basically. It's like AOC is like one of the progressives, as opposed to the moderate centrists, or even compared to a leftist or something like that. Then there's progressive as like a disposition. That's what you might mean when you say someone's a progressive centrist. They might believe in abortion and gay marriage and climate change, but on most things they're sort of like in the center or maybe slightly lean right on like a lot of other issues. So they're a centrist and progressive, Hutch. It does not necessarily preclude you from being one or the other. They're not mutually exclusive terms because they can mean different things in different contexts, and one can be a sort of like a qualifier of the other.
Up so much, and somebody was trying to get me to write a story about this recently, which I was like, this is not really my beat, is because so many people have tried to replace the word centrist.
It's so funny as well. It's so funny. Bunch of people who are like, I know I'm being insane. I'm being schizophrenic. Kathy's rubbed off on me. I'm obsessed. I'm crazy. People will be like, no, you don't understand. When Hila said Yoav Gallant was a great guy, she meant that he was a moderating voice in the cabinet. No, I understand he still called Palestinians human animals, but in the context of the cabinet of the Gaza war, he was saying, they'll give you this whole fucking thing. It's like, progressive centrist? What the fuck do you mean? Fucking retards, man. It's so crazy.
With progressive, and this has been like a thing that influencers were actually given. This is totally separate from my story, and this is like something else. Maybe I'll write about it. I don't know. Probably not. But there is an effort as certain words become stigmatized or have negative, maybe you're saying this has like a negative view with some people, they're trying to use other words. So you see them use the word progressive instead of centrist, or the word whatever.
No. I'm not talking about self-assigned labels. I mean, I think most people would look at her policy proposals and think, okay, that's just.
What do you think about Biden, Hutch? I mean, let's be honest, right? Like, so if Biden were described as a centrist Democrat,
they look at him already. Or if Pisco has just chimed in a couple of times, they've been stuck on this point for a good few minutes now. And Pisco starts chiming in just a little bit.
Was a Biden dead ender. So she absolutely is a Biden Democrat.
That does not. No.
Would you describe Biden as
AOC,
hang on, yes.
AOC and Bernie were Biden dead
exactly,
enders,
yes. AOC and Bernie Sanders were.
Describe them as Democrat. I guess they're not.
They're
progressives, right? They're progressives, right? That doesn't make them as centrists.
I would call them democratic socialists, right?
Well, listen, if you had to choose between progressive and centrist to describe AOC and Bernie, what would you choose?
It totally depends on the context of the article.
I feel like you're being a little
Bernie has been
there.
because look at what Bernie's been doing with his AI policy. Like I think
nobody would call him a centrist. Nobody
I
would
wouldn't call him, but I
wouldn't
call him progressive either on certain things.
I don't understand what these words mean anymore. I mean, like,
yeah, okay. Bernie is a leftist, but he's not particularly progressive. He is centrist on some issues. For instance, he's always cited for like the tariffs and immigration shit. There are plenty of situations where you could totally describe Bernie as either not being progressive or being centrist. To label him as a centrist full stop, no, that would probably be stupid. That would probably be like, incoherent. Wouldn't communicate what you mean to. Wouldn't be an accurate summation of his views. But certainly in some contexts, you can describe him as being a centrist on that issue.
Okay, more broadly, you said that there were 90. Did you see a list of 90 people? Is that how many people you saw?
So just to be clear, I understand that you take issue with the way that editors categorize these people, but
that's an opinion, though. You're inserting
it's not an opinion. Well, this is Chuck Johnson saying that us calling him a Holocaust denier is an opinion, or us saying that Tucker Carlson is a right winger is an opinion. All we can do is try to best reflect the ideology that often we use self-described ideologies, but all we can do.
I think she self-describes as a progressive at this point. So that's where I'm a little bit confused.
At this point, maybe, but I would say again, if you ask actual people that are further to the left than her, they will say not. So
well, that's the issue. That's the issue.
Right, and that's the issue.
Marla Tankies will call Bernie Sanders a centrist, but it's not accurate.
No, but that's the issue, because I think you're framing your article from the position of like the left.
But I didn't even write that line. So like
well, your name's on the
Of course, but I want you to understand how journalism works, right?
Okay.
The way that journalism works, it's not just that Wired is my personal blog and I can go and write whatever I want, right? And I can just go and publish on Wired and nobody's going to look at it, right? No, especially with an investigation like this, the way it happens is I find information, right? I get people trying to whistleblow in this case about a program that they're in. And I go to an editor and I say, hey, I have all of this source material, all of this people. Would you be interested in a story? Yes. Okay. I work with that editor to draft the story. It then goes through rounds, in this case, rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds of review from many different editors that not only transform the story, rewrite parts of the story, add things, take things away, but also then it goes through legal review. Then it goes through copy edits and stuff. Like
yeah,
it goes through. So, but I just want you to understand, because I think, yes, my name is at the top of the story because this is my reporting. This is my reporting that I brought forward fundamentally. But if you're going to take issue with like random sort of characterizations, and again, I understand.
I don't think it's random. I think it was deliberate. I think it was deliberate.
Okay,
framing.
well, I guess.
Why don't you get to there? I mean, why don't you go there and just ask Taylor?
The copy editor.
I'm trying to have a conversation with her. I don't know why you're jumping in here.
No, because it's kind of a stupid critique to be like, hey, centrist. It's kind of the eye of the beholder.
I think it was
my reporting.
So yeah, here Pisco starts getting frustrated with how repetitive the conversation has become, very clearly, and starts stepping in a little bit more, and basically tells Hutch, "This is fucking retarded. Come on, just move the fuck on." Centrist can mean many different things in many different contexts. It's a vague term. Arguing over the minutiae of whether this more moderate dem is a centrist or a moderate dem or progressive or what is retarded and a waste of your time. You don't get much closer to proving your point, and you should move on to something stronger.
This is my reporting that I brought forward fundamentally. But if you're going to take issue with like random sort of...
Yeah. The failure of Pisco is that he stops at Hutch has a stupid point, and not that Hutch is stupid. Exactly. How many stupid points, with what regularity, with what percentage of points that come out of someone's mouth have to be totally fucking retarded and worthless before you just go, wait, maybe this guy's a fucking idiot. Like, maybe this guy's just like a total fucking... Maybe this guy's like dumb as hell.
Characterizations. And again, I understand.
I don't think it's random. I think it was deliberate. I think it was deliberate.
Okay,
framing.
well, I guess.
Why don't you get to there? I mean, why don't you go there and just ask Taylor?
The copy editor.
I'm trying to have a conversation with her. I don't know why you're jumping in here.
No, because
so he's so mad. He cannot believe he's got Soy Pill on his side. IRI staying out of it. It's basically if you take it as sides, which it isn't. Pisco agrees with Hutch and Soy Pill's conclusion. He just thinks it's a stupid argument. If you take it as sides, it's a 2v2. And he's fucking crying about Pisco jumping in when Soy Pill's jumped in against Taylor.
It's kind of a stupid critique to be like, hey, centrist, it's kind of in the eye of the beholder. Like, yeah, so Joe Biden would describe himself as a centrist Democrat, correct? Yes or no?
No, Pisco, the whole point is...
Wait, can you answer that first? Can you answer that? So the question you should ask, is, Taylor, did you...
Let me finish my track.
The question that you should ask is, Taylor, were you attempting to imply something nefarious when you use centrist there? Were you trying to imply that they were aligned with the DNC?
Well,
ask the question about her intention.
Listen, Taylor, respectfully, I think you were doing that. I think you
I didn't even write that. I wrote the list of influencers' names. I didn't even originally.
Well, here we have another spot here where you say that.
Hutch, before you do the next thing, because I can't. Taylor, you did say that I was using words.
Then Soy Pill jumps in as well. So we're gonna move on from that point. We're gonna move on from that point. What's your opinion of the article? Basically, the article is almost all factually true. I think, well, no, it is all factually true, as far as I can tell. The biggest criticism is Pisco's criticism, which is that the byline says, and we're about to hear some of this in a minute, the byline basically says content creators were paid to push the party line, which implies a direct exchange of money to talk. That didn't quite happen. It was a PV type setup where they're receiving a monthly funding, a monthly grant, and they show up to weekly meetings to have talking point sessions and receive daily news briefings to tell them what the Democrats' stories are for that day. There's not a direct, we pay you this and you say that.
Hutch vaping while he's 6 months pregnant is disgusting.
Thank you for the $5 from the South Side. Thank you. Huge appreciated. So yeah, that's what I think of the article. Now, the point they're going to argue over here is that Taylor described it. Taylor said that of the influencers they identified being part of the program, and you can't identify them all because they were prevented from disclosing it by contract, and it wasn't published. They didn't publish a roster or anything. Of the creators they identified being part of the program, they were primarily pro-DNC, pro-establishment, pro-Israel. That's what Taylor claims. I believe in a tweet. Not in the article, I believe in a tweet. Maybe it's in the article too, I'm not sure. I think it gets hashed out here. Either way, though, the claim is, of the ones they identified, and they can't identify them all, they are primarily pro-Israel, pro-Dem, pro-DNC. And Taylor splits pro-Israel into sort of two camps, which is outright pro-Israel or silent. Because she's saying that it's basically seen by the Democratic establishment as an inconvenience to have to address Gaza. You'd rather just not take a stance, and not taking a stance is defaulting to Israel. Because, you know, the change is moving away from Israel. The current status quo is Israel. So opposing the status quo is, you know, necessary. Otherwise, you're just signing on the status quo. That's basically the argument. She doesn't say all of that, but that is basically the argument. She does say, she splits it into those two camps, though, of pro-Israel or silent. So yeah, let's listen to a bit of that. Let's listen to them argue over whether you can identify them as primarily pro-DNC, pro-Israel.
If they are not, if I was wrong, if this article is wrong, and it's factually wrong, then I highly encourage them to ask for a correction. But no one has asked for a correction. Can we do it step by step? Saying that they are not centrist. No one.
Let's just do it step by step. Hutch, is it your contention?
So you can see we've moved like 20 minutes on, still going at this point.
And that it's inaccurate to call Olivia Juliana a centrist.
I do believe that, yes, and I think that she used that word intentionally. Well, I don't know why you're playing dumb here. You understand that when Taylor uses that word, it's a pejorative.
Hang on. So separate that intent. So you can make a critique of an article based on its accuracy or based on whether there's some bad motive.
I'm trying to get to a larger.
Is it your contention? I know, but let's just do it step by step. Let's do it step by step, right? Is it inaccurate? And so, and if it's inaccurate, why is it inaccurate?
It's inaccurate because her policy priorities do not line up with what any reasonable person would assert to be a centrist. When you look at the things that she's advocating for. Okay, that's fine.
I mean, you can say, you can just make this argument about anything.
But what does it mean to be pro-DNC or pro-Israel? What does that mean?
So pro-DNC means pro-Democrat, like pro sort of the Democrat establishment, what I would say, which is very much Chorus's goal. And pro-Israel means that the majority of the people that we found that were public, which is why I think it's so crucial for them to actually release these names publicly, because I think if this is not the majority view held among their creators, they should release these names publicly to make it clear what is the ideological makeup of their chorus class. But a lot of the people that we found were also pro-Israel, meaning they were expressing support for Israel against and
how many creators out of like all the creators that you saw would you say were posting pro-Israel posts? Can you name names there?
Well, that's the point, right? Is that they haven't published the roster. They haven't published the roster, but a decent amount of ones that we checked.
Did anybody in the people that you mentioned in the article, so like Olivia Packman, Brian Taylor Cohen, did any of them post pro-Israel content?
You'll have to go check their specific feeds. But Brian Taylor Cohen,
you claim that they were primarily pro-Israel, right?
Yeah. Well, some people that are pro-Israel just don't speak about the genocide in Gaza at all, for instance, and that's
so. Yeah, I think this comes up, but basically, yeah. So my understanding is that a former Packman producer basically said, yeah, Gaza stuff's too divisive, we're not covering it. Basically said that Packman said, yeah, Gaza stuff's divisive, so we're never covering it. I'm pretty sure Packman has been pro-Israel in the past, but they basically decided, yeah, we're not covering it. So obviously Taylor is identifying David Packman as pro-Israel. I don't think that's an unreasonable conclusion to come to. I really don't.
The same thing as being pro-Israel.
Yes, because a way that pro-Israel narratives have been shaped by the media is by not mentioning the genocide. So intentionally refusing to cover the genocide, especially as it was this politically relevant topic.
Is that what you were alleging?
No, I'm just saying, like, if you look at the pro-Israel kind of creator landscape, there's a range of pro-Israel people. There's people that are straight up making content with the IDF. They're super overt about it. And then there are people that are a little bit more behind the scenes, people that are a little bit quieter about it.
Not look at Pacman's early life.
Still
by the way, that you're suggesting that if somebody chooses not to discuss the genocide in Gaza, and like that makes them pro-Israel. I find that to be
that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Wait a second.
What I said is that some people what I said is that some people who are pro-Israel, the way that they sort of the way that their content manifests is that they are not as overt. So what they'll do is they'll try to tamp down discussion. They'll be sometimes deleting comments, a lot of times just intentionally ignoring the issue, or when they're asked, to interview a politician, especially this was a big issue in the lead up to the 2024 election, you had people saying, like, sort of minimizing the issue, attempting to minimize it, attempting not to get people on the left to talk about it.
Okay,
and
does that
some creators in that program
does that apply to any creator that was
I think only 2 out of the 90 creators had a firmly pro-Palestine position. I don't think we can know that. It may be the case that you've only identified 2 that have pro-Palestine stances, but we don't actually know who all 90 are, so you can't make that firm of a claim. Which is what Taylor's saying. She's saying that's a big criticism of it, is they should tell everyone who's on the thing, and then maybe people wouldn't have this, perspective. Unless, of course, it's a justified perspective, in which case they'd be very incentivized to not release the full list of who's there.
Mentioned in your article.
Well, you'll have to go through and do an audit of all of their content, but it's certainly
isn't that your job though? You made the claim.
Yeah,
you said that the group was primarily pro-Israel. Isn't it your job to go through their
group that we saw? From the amount of creators that we saw, that was a common theme. But that wasn't necessarily a...
You didn't say a common theme. You said they were primarily pro-Israel.
Yeah, from the group of creators that we saw, that we were evaluating.
So I'll ask again. Was anybody that you mentioned in your article someone that you would say was pro-Israel?
Well, you'll have to go look at the article and figure that out for yourself based on the creators.
Wait,
not
I'm
all of the
with
creators.
You. I don't understand.
But we're not going to... There's a lot of creators that we spoke to for this article that we know are in chorus that weren't mentioned in the article.
I'm just asking you if anyone in your article you consider to be pro-Israel.
Well, I don't know. You'll have to, I really don't. I don't remember which creators that we named and didn't name off the top of our head, but I think you can just go and look at them and frankly ask the creators themselves. That's a great thing to do.
I just don't know why you would say that 90 influencers were primarily pro-Israel, but you can't name them.
No, she didn't say, so this keeps happening. So this is what I mean. Hutch this podcast, the only thing Hutch proved here is that he reads below a high school level. Okay, this is the only argument, the only conclusion Hutch has proved with his arguments here is that he reads at a sub-high school level. Because here, he is repeatedly reading the claim of the ones we could identify, they were primarily pro-Israel, pro-DNC. And what he's interpreting from that is, of the 90, they were primarily pro-Israel, pro-DNC. But that's not the claim being made. There's a large group, there's 90 creators. Taylor has identified a limited number of them. And of that limited number, they are primarily, so an even smaller group, pro-Israel, pro-DNC. That's what she's saying. She's not making the claim that of those 90, it's primarily. Okay? That's not what she said. She doesn't have the evidence to make that claim.
No, we said 90. We said the creators that we were able to suss out as being part of the program. So one thing that we asked, is for them to publish a roster so that people could take a broader look. Maybe this is just a section, right? Maybe this is just a small section that
so it could be an unrepresentative section.
Exactly. It could be a totally unrepresentative section. They could have.
But what was the methodology to decipher whether they're pro-Israel? Was it
mostly whether like their own statements or whether they had shown up in other influencer, like pro sort of Israel influencer efforts? Broadly. I mean, there are people also that I've talked to in this program that identify as Zionists privately and don't want to identify as a Zionist publicly. So I'm not trying to put specific creators on blast. I actually don't think that being pro or anti-Israel was ever something that was necessarily, something that would get you in or out of.
Yo, thank you for the raid. Present Sunday. Welcome in, Sunday Raiders.
Chorus at all, but it clearly is a.
That's useful to clear up. So
yeah,
as you sit here,
I said that after the story went up too. Yeah.
But in your
go ahead, Hutch.
But in your conversation on Current Affair, you did absolutely buy into the manufacturing logic that those hosts were presenting, which they were saying, like they were heavily suggesting that the creators that were invited into Chorus were chosen because they were not speaking up about Gaza.
So you're talking about a guy that used to work for Brian Tyler Cohen, who was working.
No, I understand that, but you agreed with that framing.
For David Pakman.
Yeah. So this is what I was referencing. So one of David Pakman's producers basically claims this. There's a guy who worked for David Pakman, says, yeah, David Pakman doesn't cover that shit. He's like kind of pro-Israel and doesn't want to step into it. What's the problem? What's wrong? Taylor doesn't say he's lying. Doesn't jump to David Pakman's defense. Believes that to be a plausible explanation, given David Pakman's previous stances and current behavior. Oh, God forbid. God forbid. What a insane conclusion to come to.
I'm not going to disagree with whatever he wants to say was his experience working for David Pakman, one of the leaders of Chorus. This is his former producer.
He was commenting on your reporting. He was going beyond his experience, and he was suggesting that Chorus was choosing creators because they were not speaking up about Israel.
He said that he was told when he worked for David Pakman that they were not supposed to be overt about the Israel stuff.
No,
and you can go back and listen to that and take issue with that. But he worked for David Pakman. I'm not going to argue with him working for David Pakman.
Taylor, he was speaking about your reporting. They were characterizing
in the context of his job, he worked for David Pakman. He was David Pakman's producer, so he would know better than anyone whether David Pakman, what his boundaries were around issues related to Israel and what sort of content they wanted to put up. He would know. He was literally David Pakman's producer, so he knows a lot better than I do. He has a lot more visibility into David Pakman's content than I do.
I think you're being evasive again, because I'm not talking about his experience. I'm talking about his characterization of your reporting.
Well, his characterization is shaped by his experience, which he has a lot more of than I do.
But you bolstered that suggestion of manufacturing consent about this issue in Gaza.
I'm gonna again defer you to him. He actually worked for David Pakman. So you
agreed with the framing, Taylor. You agreed with the framing when they were having that conversation.
He worked for David Pakman. So if he says that these were the lines that David Pakman drove when he worked for him, and that David Pakman told him this, and he had visibility not into just David Pakman, but all these sort of people that David Pakman worked with, I am going to listen to him because, again, he's a primary source.
Okay. Another part of your reporting referred to...
And then just moves on. Just moves on like he didn't just totally loop and get raped like an idiot. Nice one, Hutch.
Older article that you wrote, I think a few months before this.
By the way, apparently Taylor does have some like horrendous interviews where she is like obviously biased and agreeing with a bunch of stupid shit. Apparently with Glenn Greenwald, she basically just agreed with everything he said. So it's not like there aren't examples you could bring up, but he's just like banging on about this stupid David Pakman thing.
First one, and you had described a 2024 situation where the Biden administration was, your quote was, snubbing creators who had lightly criticized Biden. Do you remember saying that?
I think you're talking about my Washington Post article when I wrote about the Biden administration effectively blacklisting content creators.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in your Wired article about Chorus, you described that as the Biden. You said in 2024, President Joe Biden's White House snubbed several prominent content creators after they lightly criticized the administration over its policies on climate change, COVID, Gaza, and the TikTok ban.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this gets into a bunch of stupid shit. This is the moment, okay, that really shows how illiterate Hutch is. Now, Pisco gets a few moments to voice his legitimate critique that, it blows Hutch's out of the water about the byline making a clear statement of sort of quid pro quo, an exchange of money for a statement, when that wasn't the setup. That wasn't the setup. So Pisco gets a brief moment to raise that before it gets derailed by Hutch's total inability to read a sentence with more than one clause. And we're going to break that down, guys. We're going to re-break that down. So I'm excited to get there.
That's a separate thing. They're smearing the entire operation as being about like covering for genocide. This includes people like Brian Tyler Cohen and David Pakman and Olivia Juliana.
Well,
like they were, Hassan himself has made this claim. Like
Hassan was not even remotely part of this program.
But you mentioned him. You mentioned him in this article. You mentioned him in the old article. You mentioned him in this tweet.
The fucking Joe Rogan of the left or whatever.
No, but you're presenting the virtuous alternative to the corrupt Democratic shills. That's what you're doing in this whole thing.
I don't think Hassan is taking dark money.
But you're not. Are you rejecting that's what you're doing? Like that is what you're doing, right? Like you're saying you have these like radical leftists and they're pure and they're not corrupt, and then you have the corrupt pro DNC pro Israel shills, right?
Please search my Twitter feed and see what I've said about the leftists. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
I did search it, Taylor, and you have been shitting on him quite a bit.
So soy pill even. So Goy Pill himself comes in here. Thank you, Commodore Champ. Thank you.
Smile.
Huge appreciate it for the $5 there. Thank you so much. So Goy Pill himself comes in here to take the wind out of Hutch's sails. Taylor has said, look on my Twitter, see what I've been saying about leftists. I critique everyone. And also like, yeah, right. Soy Pill goes and looks, Goy Pill goes and looks. And what does he see when he gets there? Oh, she critiques everyone. Oh, she does. That is what happens. Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? Well, that's a shame, isn't it, Hutch? So I will give Hutch something here. Okay, I'll give Hutch a little bit. The article does, like I said earlier, frame a wrongdoing. There's a party engaging in wrongdoing. But is it a problem that she identifies that there are influencers like Hassan who don't take dark money? Is that a problem? Is it a problem that she identifies that? She says, not all influencers feel the need to do this. Is that a problem? What is the problem with that, Hutch? That she's identified wrongdoing. She's saying that's bad. Not all of them do this. What is your problem with that?
Constantly criticize people all over the political ideology. I very intentionally don't identify with one political faction over the other or whatever. And again, I know that pisses everybody off in that political faction. But what I'm saying is that if you think that this is some bad faith like article that's meant to like valorize the left and like criticize that's just not what the article says. And I understand that my commentary
the article did say that they're not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus.
Yes,
how do you
that's
explain
true.
that? No, it's not, though. It's not. We know that's not true.
Wait, sorry. They aren't allowed.
Why is it untrue? Wait.
Why do you think?
It's described in the
Steelman. Why do you think I'm saying that piece?
So let's go through this, guys, because this is where it really picks up. Okay. So here is the sentence in question, guys. So do we see this here? According to copies of the contract viewed by Wired that creators signed, the influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund, or functionally that they're being paid at all. Okay? So we see this. Now, what does this mean, guys? It means that Wired have looked at a contract, and that contract has a clause, has terms that say you are not allowed to disclose your relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund. And the function of this is to stop them saying that they're being paid at all. That's what it's claiming. Okay? That's the claim here. Hopefully, we all read that fine.
I understand. Listen,
the left and like criticize that's just not what the article says. And I understand that my commentary
the article did say that they're not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus.
Yes,
how do you
that's
explain
true.
That? No, it's not, though. It's not. We know that's not true.
Wait, sorry.
So has Hutch seen a copy of the contract? Has he seen all 90 contracts? He knows that the contracts don't have this term in them. Is that what he's saying? Because he's saying this claim is untrue, right? He's saying this claim is untrue. According to copies of the contract viewed by Wired, the creators signed, the influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund or function that they're being paid at all. So something's got... What's wrong here? Is it that there's a clause dictating whether they can disclose that they're being paid by Chorus and the 1630 fund? You're saying that's not true? You're saying it's not true that Wired viewed it? What we're saying is untrue here, Hutch.
They aren't allowed.
Why is it untrue? Wait.
Why do you think?
It's described in the
Steelman. Why do you think I'm saying that piece?
So I understand. Listen, I have my issue. I want to bring up my issues with the
Why do you think I'm saying that?
Wait. Hang on. I will definitely address that. I will definitely address that. I will definitely address that. Hutch. I will definitely address it. So
this still mammy shit is the most bitch baby behavior in the fucking world, bro. It is like legit the most just man-child shit. Stand up and just explain your ideas like a normal fucking person, like an adult. It's crazy. You've had Soy Pill on your side for most of the time. You can handle answering a question when Pisco asks you a question.
I want to be. I understand. Listen, I have my issue. I want to bring up my issues with the with.
Why do you think I'm saying that?
Wait, hang on. I will definitely address that. I will definitely address that.
Recording says.
I will definitely address that.
Right, guys.
Hutch. I will definitely address it. So I want to be clear. I have my own problems with the article. It has to do actually with the contractual language in the title. But I mean, at this point, it's been done to death.
I didn't write the title. I didn't write the title.
Sure.
Don't come
the title wrong.
The contractual. The article. Are you asking me or asking Taylor?
I'm asking Taylor. Is the subheading wrong then?
But you can ask her.
That's so important. That's so important. The subheading.
It's not factually wrong.
Well, you just said you didn't write it. So
yeah,
I mean,
journalists don't write their titles.
But you have influence on the byline on the subheading, right? You can't request. Did you request to change the subheading? Wait, hang on.
No, it's factually correct. Why would I do that?
Hang on. Journalists can't request that a subheading is changed?
So basically, Taylor's argument here is if it's not factually correct, she's not going to argue against it because ultimately it's up to the editors to maximize the views on the website. If they want to write a salacious title, as long as it's not factually inaccurate in her view, then she's not going to correct it. So that's what Taylor's saying to them right now.
I would never do that unless it was factually wrong. It's not factually wrong.
This is absolutely factually wrong, though. I mean, like in your subheading, you say that online influencers were paid up to.
We're getting onto this briefly.
$8,000 a month to push the party line.
Yeah, that's how the decks. Sorry, the decks in the marketing decks describe course.
The marketing decks. We're talking about a realistic claim.
Right. We're talking about
you're saying that they were getting paid $8,000 to push the party line, and there's no deliverables.
Whole point of the program was to fix the Democratic Party's messaging problem. That's the whole point of the program.
But you're saying paid X to do Y. That's a consideration for some sort of thing in the other end of it. And I did have a criticism about that, but I wanted to address what was just said about the characterization regarding the disclosure. The article states that the language of the contract forbids disclosure, and I don't have any reason to believe that's untrue.
Yeah, there were at what particular quote are you pointing to here? Do you have the quote in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me, but I know it's characterizing the
contract viewed by Wired that creators signed. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund, but that's not true.
Are you disputing the accuracy of that? Why do you think it's untrue?
Yep. So Hutch, lay it out for us. What part of that is false? What reason you have to believe it's false? Let's hear it, Hutch.
Because there's two different things going on here. There's the qualifier, like according to the contract, but then she's making a claim. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship
under the contract.
Yes.
Correct. So what? Let's just hear that one more time. So it's untrue because
are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund, but that's not true.
Are you disputing the accuracy of that? Why do you think it's untrue?
Because there's two different things going on here. There's the qualifier, like according to the contract, but then she's making a claim. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship
under the contract.
So, guys, there's a qualifier, like according to the contract, and then she's making a claim. The influencers who are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund. So that means it's untrue. Now, I'll elaborate on Hutch's argument a bit more here, because he hasn't quite. So, according to the copies of the contract viewed by Wired that creators signed, the influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund. But some of them did, is basically his argument. But some of them did, so that's untrue. But the fact that some of them disclosed it is not actually dispositive of the idea that according to the contract, they are not allowed to. Someone could have breached contract, someone could have gained explicit permission to disclose, and that would not change, or they could have a different contract, but that could not change. That would not change this claim. That would not disprove this claim, which is, according to the copies of the contract viewed by Wired that creators signed, the influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund. Now, if the claim was, the influencers are not allowed, so ignore this first part. If the claim here was, the influencers are not allowed to disclose their, none of the influencers are allowed to disclose their relationship with the 1630 fund or Chorus, and none of them have. If that was the claim, that might be untrue. That would be disproven by what Hutch is saying. But that's not the claim here. And in fact, the thing that Hutch is identifying here, the use of this qualifier for this claim, according to the copies of the contract, for this claim, this actually strengthens Taylor's point. the thing that Hutch identified, this is actually a limiting qualifier that makes it so they are only making the claim that they can substantiate. They are not making a claim past what they have. According to the copies of the contract viewed by Wired. So, we're not saying this absolutely even is the case. We're just saying, according to these copies of this contract that we reviewed, this is the claim. This is a limiting qualifier that makes it a more solid, like, they absolutely can prove what they're claiming. He's so dumb. He is full-blown fucking illiterate, cannot read at a high school level, does not understand how clauses work in a sentence. It's fucking crazy. Is the use of double hyphen fucking them up here? Is that what it is?
Yes, under the contract. Under the contract. That's all under the contract.
No, but I think the qualifier is
very clearly, that's very clearly what it's talking about is what's allowed under
let's run it back again.
According to the contract, but then she's fun. But that's not true.
Are you disputing the accuracy of that?
Yes,
why do you think it's untrue?
Because there's two different things going on here. There's the qualifier, like according to the contract, but then she's making a claim. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship
under the contract.
Yes, under the contract. Under the contract. That's all under the contract.
No, but I think the qualifier is
very clearly that's very clearly what it's talking about is what's allowed under the contract. Do you have any basis to believe that's untrue?
But why wouldn't you verify that was being enforced?
Wait.
That's why they came to talk to us. That's why we have the article.
But Taylor,
so they're probably in breach. Hutch. The answer is they're probably in breach. The answer is they're probably in breach of their contract.
I don't know what is in their contract versus what they enforce.
But the question, Hutch, the question stands. Do you have the basis? Hutch, the question stands. Do you have a basis to believe that that's untrue? Yes or no?
The framing of this, I find.
Do you have a basis to believe the statement is untrue?
The framing is dishonest. Do you even disagree with me?
Is the statement true or not? No, I think the other part of the contraction. I do, but it's kind of like in poor taste, kind of like lame to just have a pile on. And I have a different problem with the contractual language having to do with funnel through, and that's been done to death. And I can't even get my point heard on that. But I just want to ask you, Hutch, do you have a basis to believe that statement in the article is true? Yes or no?
No, not as it's framed. No.
You think that they were allowed to
you either have a basis, to believe it's false or you don't.
No. Hang on. You're not saying, like, you're doing the slippery thing, Taylor. There's two different things going on here, right? So, like, were they allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 fund? The 1630 fund, that is the separate fiscal sponsor. I understand that that's like a separate, like, obviously
no, they were accepting checks from the 1630 fund.
Right. So that's where they were the fiscal sponsor. So they did a lot of like administrative stuff. They got like.
You have a basis to believe that language in the article is untrue.
No. So that's one.
Do you have a basis to believe that
$5? Thank you for $5. I see. Huge appreciate it. Thank you.
More Pisco.
Yep. There's a goal, guys. Reminder: there's a goal right now for bonus Pisco content.
That's it, because it's true.
Question. So we do know that in the contract that they were not allowed to disclose that they had like a relationship with 1630 or
so it's so the answer is it's a true statement in the article.
Thank you. I'll plus the $5. Thank you.
This sentence right here. Tell me if you think.
Doing my part.
Thank you. Let's just make sure we hear all this.
That it's untrue or not.
Because it's true.
Question. So we do know that in the contract that they were not allowed to disclose that they had like a relationship with 1630 or
so it's so the answer is it's a true statement in the article.
So you know. So what did he just say?
So we do know that in the contract.
We do know that in the contract
that they were not allowed to disclose that they had like a relationship with 1630 or
so it's
so we do know that in the contract they were not able to disclose that they had a relationship with the 1630 or, and assumedly he's about to say Chorus. What does it say again, Hutch? In case he ever sees this, according to copies of the contract viewed by Wired. So the contract says the influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 16. Okay, hopefully we're getting there. Hopefully everyone's on the same page.
Is that so? The answer is it's a true statement in the article.
Pisco, this sentence right here. Tell me if you think this is true. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus.
The paid yeah, exactly.
No, not the paid relationship. No,
yes, their relationship was the relationship was.
Say that you see
the relationship.
Hutch. They're signing the contract to get money. The point of signing the contract is that you get money. They're only under the contract if their relationship is paid. It's the whole point, Hutch.
Literally.
What is he trying to convey here?
Tell me if you think this is true. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus.
The paid yeah, exactly.
No, not the paid relationship. No,
yes, their relationship was the relationship
you didn't say that. You
the relation. It literally says the relation. Did you or functionally that they're paid at all? Did you read? Can you read that sentence again?
I can read it right now. According to copies of the contract viewed by Wire.
Yeah, it literally even specifies here, or functionally that they're being paid at all.
That creators signed. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 Fund, or functionally that they're being paid at all. There's like three different.
The object there is relationship.
Exactly, Pisco.
The first one is Chorus, right? So like you're saying that they are not allowed to disclose the relationship with Chorus.
But the relationship is the object. With is the indirect object, or it's describing what's the thing is that can't be disclosed.
Oh my god, Pisco legit just slipping into like fucking high school English right there. Just legit, it's crazy. It's fucking crazy, man. It's crazy. Having to watch a grown man have this explained to him when he's come in so hot. He's come in so hot, trying to just like pin Taylor Lorenz on this. And Pisco's just sitting there explaining shit that most people learn when they're like 13.
The relationship with Chorus or the 1630 Fund. That's what it says.
Yeah, those relationships. There? Is that a reasonable reading of it?
But we know, and I'm curious if when you were doing your reporting, Taylor, like, were you aware that creators had been open that they were a part of Chorus before you wrote the article?
You can see that we actually link to Ken Bensinger's New York Times article, I believe, or reference it in the piece. I literally talked about that multiple times. It's Chorus, the Chorus itself, like the sort of broader entity that Brian Tyler Cohen started, was the subject of a New York Times article that was very public. So obviously I know that Chorus was public because I've also written about Chorus before. So
then I don't know how to make sense of the sentence. The influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or
their relationship with Chorus. Exactly. They couldn't disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 Fund, or functionally that they were paid at all.
They did though. Many had discussed their relationship.
That's not what but the article describing what the contract allows.
Guys, guys, let me step in here. We got 10 minutes left, and I got to say two things. And Guy's been incredibly quiet, and I think we can pivot this last thing into something that Guy will really.
Sorry, Pill just like totally bails him out here. So yeah, that's all pretty bad. That's all pretty bad. Now, it's kind of done there, really. It's kind of done there. There's that final embarrassing illiterate moment from Hutch, and that's about it. Now we do have one final clip. It's kind of funny.
Pisco, is it true that the picture that Ira and I took that I sent to you described us as your Jews?
I certainly did not. I certainly did not. No, but I did see someone. I've seen a nickname for you, Soy Pill. Can I say it?
Do I get the Jewish? I don't know. Can you?
Do I get the G word pass?
The G word.
The goy pill. I've heard that.
Goy isn't a slur, so you can say it, I think.
All right. Well, I don't know. Listen, I'm not read into everything. All right, bro.
You're scaring me with these questions, Pisco.
I do want to get at some point.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So yeah, that's the last bit of that. Okay, that's the last bit.